Welcome back to Ploughman's Backyard, and today we are in the kitchen again, as in the fall is where I spend most of my time in the kitchen due to all the canning that we do here at Ploughman's Backyard. And today we're going to be canning carrots. So whether you have an abundance of carrots in your own home garden, or whether you have picked some up in bulk for cheap at the store, you can can carrots as long as you have a pressure canner. So today we're doing a short video just to show you how we can our carrots here at Ploughman's Backyard. So first step is you want to make sure that you've washed, peeled, and cut all of your carrots. I have done them a good size just because I don't want them to end up mushy during the canning process. Once we have got these carrots prepared, is to make sure that we've sterilized our jars, and I have got now boiling water going. So I'm going to add these to the jars, add some boiling water. So you want to make sure you have iodized salt for when you're processing your vegetables. Most people use 1 teaspoon of salt. You don't really need to even add any salt, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon per quart. So what they say is a 1/2 teaspoon per pint and a teaspoon per quart. That's just a bit too much salt. I like to add salt as I make my dishes, so I'm just going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in my quart jars. But that's up to you. That's just what I'm doing. So now that we have the boiling water added to the jars, we are now going to add our 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Again, this is iodized salt. And again, salt is optional. So before we wipe our lids of our jars, we want to make sure that we get all of those air bubbles out of our jars before we process them. And the next step is to weight down our rims. Make sure there's nothing there that's going to prevent those lids from sticking to the lid or the top of our jars. All right, now that we've heated up their lids, we're just going to place them on and screw on the rings. This is about 10 pounds of carrots, and I've got 6 quarts. Okay, so now our next step is to get these jars into our pressure canner. So the first step in what we want to do is add 3 quarts of water to our pressure canner. And make sure that you have your rack down there so that they're not touching the pot directly. And we're just going to set them down here. So we've got our 6 jars in now. We're going to get the lid on. So basically, I don't know if you can see it here, there's a little arrow. We want to line those up, and we need 2 hands, and we just want to make sure, give this a little bit of, needs a little bit of force in, and we'll lock those into place. Once those are locked into place, we can start our pressure canner. So I've turned this up to high, and basically what we're going to wait for now is we're going to have this little guy here. It needs to pop up to let us, and once this thing pops up here, we're going to watch this steam over here. And we're going to wait for this steam to come out for at least 10 minutes of a steady, strong steam. And I'll bring you back once that happens. So as you've seen, we've got that popped up, and now what we need to do is monitor, I don't know if you can see it or not, but what we need to do is monitor the steam coming out of this little hole here. And once we get a steady stream, I don't know if you can see it here or not, but we have a steady, strong stream of steam coming out. And we want that to go for at least a minimum of 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my timer on for 10 minutes, and then I'll bring you back again. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. So our timer has just went off. It has been 10 minutes of a steady stream. You can kind of see it here. And now it is time to put the pressure gauge on. Okay, so we've got the pressure gauge on, and we are going to bring this up to pressure to about 11 psi. And this is where we're going to need to regulate the heat that we give. So right now it's on high, and most likely we'll have it down around the medium to low medium heat to keep it at a steady 11 psi. If we go over, that's okay, but we do not want it to go under 11 psi. So once we get it up to 11 and it stays there without it coming back down, then we can start our timer for 30 minutes. So because I have quarts in here, we need to have it going for 30 minutes. If you have pints, it's 25 minutes. So we are just going to get this up to 11, and we're going to try to regulate the temperature first before we start our timer. So we are almost at 11 pounds of pressure, or 11 psi. Once we get it up, which it is, now it's time to start regulating our temperature with the dial. I'm going to turn it down to 7, see how it sits. So basically we want this to stay at a minimum of 11. It can go up to 12, it can go up to 13. For our altitude, we need it to be at 11 psi. We're about 1,370 feet above sea level, so we need to have it at a minimum of 11. So if it does go below 11, then I have to start my timer all over again and bring it back up. So we want to make sure that this does not go below 11. I think I'm going to try and keep it between 11 and 12 for a straight 30 minutes. But first we're going to make sure that we regulate our heat on the stove and we keep it steady where it is. So I have my dial sitting right in the middle between 11 and 12. That's where I want to keep it. I have my temperature just above the 6 a little bit, and now I'm going to turn our timer on for 30 minutes because I have quarts. And we're going to press start. Now I am not going to leave the kitchen. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to monitor the PSI, making sure it does not go below the 11. And I'll bring you back when it's ready to turn the stove off. So we've reached our 30 minutes. The next step is we don't want to touch anything to do with the pressure canner. The first step that we're going to do is we're actually going to turn the heat off. And we are going to give this time. Basically what we want to see here is this little thing here has to go back down. We want that pressure to be at 0, and then once we get to that point, it is then time to take off the pressure gauge. But we're going to wait until we get this to 0 and this pops down, and I'm going to bring you back to see. So So we've got the pressure gauge down to 0 now, and we are just waiting for this thing to go back down, and then we can remove the pressure gauge. So now that the pressure gauge is reading 0 and this is down, it's now time to take the weight off. All right, now that we have the weight off, everything's down, that's at 0, the heat's off. It's now to open it, so we're just going to slide it around. Should be safe to open. Okay, and we're just going to let that sit for just a little bit. And what we're going to do is when we open it up, we're not just going to pull up, we're going to actually have it face that way so that the heat and steam is not going to blow into our face. And there's the steam. Now we are going to remove the carrots, make sure we put them on a mat. Well, once again, I want to thank you for joining us here at Ploughman's Backyard. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it encourages you to try canning, even try pressure canning. It's not as scary as it's made out to be. There's lots, all these canners seem to have lots of features for safety. If you follow the instruction manual and follow the safety precautions, you can do it. I want to encourage you. You can do it too. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. Subscribe to us. There's going to be a lot more canning videos coming out, different recipes. And even in the winter months when we do not do our gardening and we're not doing anything with our chickens, there's still things to do. I want to show you lots of great things, different recipes, bread recipes, things like that, and different ways of preparing for the garden in the winter. And you know, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of great things coming up. So please subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming up.